Now, for my instructors in the room, you have discs. The discs cover everything. Keep it simple. Every single possible scenario that we have discussed, or we will be discussing, is thought out. You'll see that there is a student's manual. There's also an instructor's manual in the actual disc. What's the instructor's manual? What I have up here. Meaning what? The instructor's manual will print out, has the slide, also has helpful teaching points. If questions are asked, how to actually train this. For example, I have a few notes. We thought of every possible question, how to respond to it in the instructor's manual. So when you open this up, when you look at this, the instructor's manual has all of the notes as to how to train this as well. The disc also has a number of other resources, including the embedded videos that you're going to see. With regards to the LGBTQ community, New York Police Department policies and procedures. With regards to transgender. And with regards to who does searches. And we're going to talk about that over the course of the next 3 hours as part of this training. So the disc that you have, basically, it's designed to keep it easy, keep it simple. For my instructors in the room, if you decide to change the 3-hour presentation, if you decide to change this, how is this going to work? For my local departments, you're going to send it to your county prosecutor's office for approval. If the county prosecutor's office agrees with whatever changes you make as an instructor, they're going to send it to me. Meet Dean Wormer from the Clear Institute. I'll review it. If it's substantially similar, I'm going to approve it, meaning you're good to go. For my county people, if you want to make changes to this, you can send it directly to me. We will not, at the Attorney General's office, look at any changes to this proposed curriculum unless it's approved by the county prosecutor's office first. We want to make sure we're speaking with one voice in each county. So let's talk specifically about what this training is. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is Cultural Diversity De-Escalation of Bias Crime Reporting. This program has been vetted, re-vetted, vetted again. These are the number of institutions and organizations actually involved with the creation of this 3-hour program. The Attorney General's Office, Division of Criminal Justice, the Attorney General, OAG, Office of Law Enforcement Professional Standards, New Jersey State Police, the New Hope Baptist Church, the Voorhees Police Department, Jersey City University, New Jersey Association of Jewish Federations, the Somerset County Police Academy, Division of Criminal Justice Police Academy, the New Jersey State Office of Volunteerism, the Latino Leadership Alliance of New Jersey, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, New Jersey Homeland Security and Preparedness, the Institute of Forensic Psychology, the New Jersey Asian Law Enforcement Officers Association, the New Jersey Port Authority, the Islamic Society of Basking Ridge, the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, the Bias Crime Officers Association, the Department of Human Services, Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services, the Union County Prosecutor's Offices, the Bergen County Prosecutor's Offices, United Six, Monmouth University School of Social Work, OAG, Division of Civil Rights, Garden State Equality, Maple Shade Police Department, New Jersey Association of Chiefs of Police, the U.S. Justice Department, the New Jersey Chaplains Association, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers, and the National Association of Colored People, NAACP. We're all part of this working group to create this program. This is not the Attorney General's office pushing out something. This is us working with subject matter experts in academia, in law enforcement, in the community that you serve, to push out a cultural diversity training that is in fact useful for you and the community that you serve. So what are my training objectives? What are we going to be trained on? We're going to be trained on a number of different things. This training breaks down into 9 separate parts over the next 3 hours. You're going to be trained on identifying factors which constitute cultures in the state of New Jersey, identifying the nature of bias, inherent bias, and the way in which it can affect behavior of law enforcement officers in the community you serve, identifying verbal, nonverbal de-escalation techniques, interacting with a person of different culture, ethnicity, religion, language, or sexual orientation or gender identity, identifying and understanding procedure for reporting bias crimes. A small portion of this training we'll deal with that as well. Because we're talking about de-escalation, and because there is use of force concepts that we're going to be talking about over the course of this training, we always talk about Rule 1 in any of these trainings. Each of you goes home safely after your shift. That's Rule 1 in any training that we do with regards to use of force and use of force concepts. Even when we're talking about cultural diversity. Ma'am, I'm an African American male. I have a gun pointed at you. Do you have authority to use deadly force in that scenario? Do you believe death or imminent danger of death or serious bodily injury may result from me pointing a gun at you? Are you authorized to use deadly force? You are. Is that the time where you're going to be able to de-escalate someone of a different culture than you? Die! How's our de-escalation techniques going to go there? Not so good. With regards to special needs de-escalation, with regards to cultural diversity and part 2 of this de-escalation, we're not changing anything that we previously taught you on tactics. With regards to de-escalation, we have to have a general understanding, common knowledge. From what perspective is this person coming from? We need to ask. And so if we understand that perspective, we may be able to de-escalate. So, Rule 1, each of you goes home safely after your shift. Core law enforcement values, respect for people, reverence for law, service to the community. That's in any law enforcement training that we do. What is this training not about? It's not about changing any of your police tactical training concerning cover, distance, or responding to a potentially dangerous situation. Look, we're going to talk about going into an actual mosque. And when you go into a mosque in a non-life-threatening situation, remove your shoes. That's the custom. That's what's required. Person's dying of a heart attack, you're required to move your shoes? No. Because now we have a life-threatening situation. So understanding different cultures, understanding what takes place. But we're not changing anything with regards to cover, with regards to tactical situations, with regards to understanding potentially dangerous situations. As law enforcement officers, you go through a whole bunch of training at the police academy and in service, at all the training that you deal with, which you are different from regular citizens. You are thinking 7 steps ahead. How many of you know how many exits there are if there's a fire right now? What's your point of exit? When you're meeting someone for the first time, what are you doing? You're scanning them. You're looking for possible threats. That's how you're trained, because you have to be 7 steps ahead of someone. We understand that. We understand those concepts. We are not changing anything with regards to what you've previously been taught. Let's lay some foundation for cultural diversity. All of you took an oath. That oath is protect and serve. Officers shall perform all duties fairly and impartially, without favor or affection or ill will, without regard to status, gender, race, religion, political belief, and aspiration. You will conduct yourselves in appearance and deportment of such manner to inspire confidence and respect in the position and the public trust and the public position that you hold. What's this training all about? Perception, understanding. Perception, understanding. What is your belief as to how you're perceived in the community that you serve? How do you believe the community perceives you? Vice versa. What is your understanding of the community that you serve? What is that understanding? And oh, by the way, is that based upon a perception, a misperception, or is it based upon fact? Because if we can at least understand from where someone's coming from. For example, what's driving perception of law enforcement in the African American community in 2017? What is driving perception of law enforcement officers in the Muslim community, the Latin American or Hispanic community? If we can at the very least have a general understanding of what's driving perception, what is fact as opposed to fiction, we have the baseline to establish at least common ground. Where we can have a conversation, where we may be able to in fact have understanding. That, in fact, individuals' perception of us may be wrong, our perception of the community that we serve may be wrong as well. So what is our understanding of them? I always say it's not a training unless we can use a quote from Roadhouse. Anyone know the movie? 1989, Patrick Swayze was robbed of an Oscar of this. I mean, it's not a training unless I can get a Roadhouse quote in it. And this is the best quote I got with regards to law enforcement and law enforcement community. Quote from Roadhouse: "You have to be nice until it's time not to be nice. And then you got to be nice again." Look, here's what I know. Law enforcement is the only profession, I teach use of force all over the state. Law enforcement is the only profession that I know that if a person is attempting to kill you, imminent danger of death, serious bodily injury, you're authorized to use deadly force. You shoot to stop the threat when you have imminent danger of death or serious bodily injury. And when that threat is dissipated, you're now required to report and become a first responder. Your duty, that oath, requires you to now give aid to that person 5 minutes earlier was attempting to exterminate you. That's your oath. That's your responsibility when you took this job. Time to be nice until it's time not to be nice. Meaning what? If my interaction with the community is always that everyone's a criminal, how's that going to play? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think of this concept. It's called the ripple effect. The ripple effect. What's that? You throw a stone in a lake, the ripples occur. Your interaction with the community that you serve today is going to have a ripple effect of a future law enforcement officer's interaction with that same person tomorrow. It's called the ripple effect for that reason. Good interaction may lead to that secondary, later interaction being better positive. I'm going to show you a couple videos in a couple seconds to deal with that. We all know people. With the first video I'm going to show with the skateboarders in Baltimore, we all know individuals like this officer. This is the stereotype of law enforcement in the community that you serve. And then the second video I'm going to show you with officers responding in Florida to the call. The call is kids playing basketball in the street. My local police officers, you get a call, you got to respond. Anyone ever deal with something like this? Because the community calls 911, what's your emergency? Kids are playing basketball in the street. How we respond to that? In this job, a simple interaction can make a difference. Again, ripple effect. What is that ripple effect? So, here is my Baltimore officer.
Yeah, I tried to tell him, but he had his earphones in.
Can you hear me now? Hey, I'm talking to you.
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Don't get defensive with me, son. You spend some time in juvenile. You're not allowed to ride your skateboards now. Nowhere.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
That's why I asked you if you had the thing on. Don't get defensive with me. You backed off me. I'm not your father. You hear me? I'm not your father. You give that attitude to your father. You give it to me, I'll smack you upside your head.
I don't have a father.
Shut your mouth, I'm talking.
Eric, shut up, dude.
Where are you from?
Dude, I didn't do anything.
Where are you from?
No.
Give me that
Dude,
skateboard.
man.
Okay. Sit down.
What the heck?
Sit down.
Dude,
Sit down, I'm not a dude.
I'm calling Eric, sit down.
You're damn right you're calling your mother.
Dude, don't take my skateboard. I didn't do anything, dude.
You call me dude one more time. Are you from the county or something?
No, I didn't do anything. I didn't hear you.
Hey, that's fine.
Where are you from? I'd like to talk to her.
I didn't even do anything. I didn't hear you.
First of all, you disrespected me, this badge, and my department. You understand me? When I'm talking to you, you shut your mouth and you listen. Obviously, your parents don't put a foot in your butt quite enough, because you don't understand the meaning of respect. First of all, you better learn how to speak. I'm not man, I'm not dude. I am Officer Riviere. Now, the sooner you learn that, the longer you're going to live in this world. Because you go around doing this kind of stuff, somebody's going to kill you. How old are you? 14. Sit down. Did you not just hear me? Son, what is your problem? You go to school and give your teacher this kind of lip and backtalk your teacher? Then what makes you think you can come and do it to a police officer? Stop calling me dude. A dude is somebody who works on a ranch. Your friends got brains in their head. They know when to shut their mouth. You just keep flapping. Now, what's your name? Eric what? Speak up. Where do you live, Eric Bush? And what's your address? What is it? Is your mother home? You want to call her so I can talk to her? And I'll explain to her what the problem is?
Post it on YouTube. What's the ripple effect? First of all, I don't know about Maryland. In the state of New Jersey, any of that use of force authorized? No. None of that use of force authorized. We went from 0 to 60 real quick. It's physical force. Actually, we're almost in deadly force land because it looks like, smells like a chokehold almost. Not authorized. What's the ripple effect here? For this kid who's going to get older, is now going to see another cop in the future, gets pulled over. What's this ripple effect now that this is going to have? All right? So we have the typical stereotype of law enforcement. And oh, by the way, this is at the harbor, where we got a whole bunch of tourists seeing this interaction as well. Okay? Let's see a different reaction.
10th Street, Uniform 32, be advised we got this address in CSA Q. We received several 911 calls from a cell phone with a child on the line saying someone is dead in Georgia.
How are you? You believe someone's calling to complain about kids playing basketball on the street? You believe that? Yeah. I don't know who called, but obviously I ain't got no problem with it. Hey, that's a nice hoop. Oh yeah? I ain't real good at it. Is that like NBA height? Oh no, now you bought back on it. The girl said that, the girl probably said that. I know you can dunk on that. Alright guys, I'm gonna go. Just do me a favor. Obviously I have no problem with you playing basketball on the street, just if you can. Sorry, just try not to be too loud. You know what I mean? Yeah. But have fun. Alright. Rather see y'all doing this than out there causing problems. Alright, you guys play out here every day? Yeah. I might bring some backup. You gonna be out here tomorrow? Yeah. Right, I'm gonna try to bring some back out here. We'll get a little game going tomorrow. Alright?
Back with Shaq and a few of his friends. And then on a pickup game. Ripple effects. Your job is extremely tough. You don't need a lawyer to tell you that your job in law enforcement is extremely tough. Every call is different. Every interaction with the public is different. You literally got to hit the reset button every single time. Every time. Ripple effects. An understanding of this. So we got to talk about lenses. Look, all of us have preconceived ideas. The biggest influencers of my life growing up was my mother and father. You hear your father, I have a 14-year-old son now. I hear my father more and more every day. You have that experience? When you were growing up? Oh man, I'll never do that to my kid yet. Those influencers, for the first 18 years of your life, good, bad, or 21 years, or, I'll ask the question, anyone still living the dream, still, you know, old school style, living home with mom and dad? Huh? Living the dream? My dreamers? I asked this at the academies, and I got a whole bunch of dreamers still. Yeah! Yeah! Mom and dad still do your laundry? You bet! Yeah! No dreamers here? All right, so let's say first 18 years. Your mother, your father, good, bad. All of those values, for example, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, finally in South Jersey, I do a lot of stuff up north. Can we all agree the Giants stink? I'm Eagles fans here, and I'm 10-1, so all of a sudden now I got a little, any Giants fans in the room? All right, you know, hey, at the very least now, we're really good at celebrating the draft in Philadelphia. You guys get to celebrate this year, so good luck with the #1 pick. Okay. Can we agree, my Giants fan, my singular Giants fan, that we have common bread? You know what that is, common ground? Whoever's 10-1 or 1 and forever, your team was a 2 and forever. 2 and forever, sorry. 2 and forever. We can agree that that we have one common thread. Dallas sucks. Any Dallas fans in the room? Just, you failed. Get out. All right, we have common ground, my Giants fan, right? I'm not saying you're going to root for me to win now. I'm saying that at the very least we have common bread. That, in fact, Dallas stinks. Where does that come from for me? My grandfather, my father. I had no choice but to be an Eagles fan. I thank them every single day. And a Phillies fan, and a Flyers fan, and for the love of God, a Sixers fan. Where all we did was celebrate the draft the last 3 years. Why? That's how I was raised. I am half Italian. My mother says the good side. Half Italian, and then a mutt. Czechoslovakian, Russian, Latvian, Estonian, you name it. I am a mutt on my father's side. Russian, Polish, a mutt of all Eastern European countries. So there are common values that are shared. There's also beliefs, good, bad, that you're raised in your household. Look around the room. Let's start changing our lenses. Law enforcement officers of different race, ethnicity, gender, culture, religion, sexual orientation, sexual preference are sitting amongst you. When we start talking about changing our lenses, the thing we need to stress with regards to this is, I want you to put yourself in someone else's shoes. I want you to put yourself in someone who's not of your race, culture, gender, sexual orientation, or disability, and ask yourself the following question. How would they perceive events? How would that Dallas fan perceive what I just said about their team? As an Eagles fan, as a common knowledge. Change and ask yourselves, if you change your perspective about whether or not that, by placing yourself in someone else's shoes, would actually change your interaction with the community. Let's be specific. If you're Christian, ask yourself how a Sikh, Muslim, or Jew would perceive events. If you're heterosexual, ask yourself how a member of the LGBTQ community may perceive events. If you're Caucasian, ask yourself how would an African American perceive events. If you're a male, ask yourself how a female would perceive events, or vice versa. If you're Asian, ask yourself how a Latin American would perceive events. In other words, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Because in order for you to understand the community that you serve, you need to have that perspective. What is driving that perception? Some general law enforcement rules. Everyone is to be treated equally, regardless of their ethnicity, culture, gender, race, sexual orientation. The general public, another law enforcement norm. Whoever that person is, when there's a violation of the law, your duty is to do an enforcement action. Whoever the community is that you serve, if in fact they violate the law, they're to be held to the same letter of the law equally. In recent years, there's been tension between the community and the police, several flashpoints in the community you serve. There's always going to be gaps between cultures, genders, religions, and ethnic groups. Always gaps. Detective Melvin Santiago, anyone know this kid's story? For my instructors in the room, the entire packet has a write-up with regards to him from Officer Memorial page. I don't have any inside information. We were not involved in this investigation. This is all from public sources. Detective Melvin Santiago, End of Watch, July 13, 2014. This kid was 6 months out of the academy, a baby. 6 months out of the academy with a partner responding to a robbery in progress. There is a security guard at the store. Security guard is armed. The defendant takes the security guard's gun, but he doesn't run. What does he do? He waits for the police to arrive. According to press reports, he's going to become famous. How? He's going to kill a cop. Santiago rolls up, he's in the passenger seat, never gets out of the vehicle, shot in the head, dead. The defendant in this matter was shot and killed by responding officers. There were a lot of memorials for Detective Santiago during this time period, rightfully so. This was not one of them. Note the word some. This was for the shooter. This was for the guy that was going to become famous by killing a cop. So, let's start talking about lenses and changing lenses. What this is all about, and for my trainers in the room, I insert this slide in to talk about changing perception, and sir, you've nailed it. I can use this slide and spin it many different ways, depending on what my position is, right? I can talk about community hating cops, the divide between the cops and the community, that they in fact would support a shooter of a cop before a member of a police department. Or the answer may be just as simple as the fact that no matter what this guy did, which is horrible, no one's going to defend it. No one's even going to try to even say it is correct. But what this guy did, which is indefensible, the guy had family members. Maybe it was a memorial to him. Plain and simple. We talk about perception. We talk about ideas. This is a divide. This is divisive. This hurts. I train cops all the time. I train academy people all the time. I train kids to become police officers all the time. And my worst nightmare is waking up one day and seeing their picture, your picture, with the notice that you've been killed. That's my nightmare. And yet, with regards to this, it may be just as simple as the fact that this guy had family, friends. Didn't support the action, wanted to memorialize him. All right, we're about ripping scabs off in this actual training. Again, if I'm going to have you in here for 3 hours, we're going to have a communication, a dialogue, and a conversation. So what's the status? This was a 2015 St. Louis Honors class. In my instructors in the room, your packet actually has the article that I pulled it from. This was an honors class. One more time, honors class. One more time, just in case you didn't hear me the first time, honors class. The artwork depicts two scenes. This was for an Edgar Allan Poe series that they were doing. Flashback, 1930, with a member of the Ku Klux Klan wearing a white hood, pointing a gun at a black man with a Confederate flag below it. The other side of the picture says 2015, features a police officer pointing a gun at an African-American child with the American flag below it. Look, stuff goes sideways, you normally get the call. Restore order where there is no order. That's normally what you're dealing with on a daily basis from my municipal officers, from my city officers. that you're responding to every day. Stuff has gone sideways. And you're correct, we don't do such a great job. Okay? Now, man, I'm going to flip the questions. What would lead this kid, this 15-year-old honor student, African-American female, to do this? What's her perception? So what's driving that perception? Again, you are the people that run towards danger. You are the people that throw yourselves on people if they're protesting you. You're the people that throw yourselves on them when there's an active shooter situation. You run towards danger. So we need to understand what's driving perception. What's driving that? Help me help you help the class, Sarge. What's driving that?
A lot of things, social media.
Social media?
And individuals' content management.
Okay, ripple effect?
And it doesn't matter what the officer's nationality is, it's uniform.
Sure.
So that's what it is.
Sure, they're seeing uniform, they're automatically associating white. Okay. Has race relations gotten better or worse since Ferguson? Ladies and gentlemen, this is 2017. This is the United States in 2017. This is the summer of 2017. And so with regards, I didn't print it out, with regards to the instructor notes, this is one of those with regards to instructor notes that we talk about. Are we more divided? According to NTP Daily, September 21st, 2017, Wall Street Journal poll. 70% of Americans had a negative view of race relations in the country, viewing the issue as fairly bad or very bad. What's the statistical breakdown? 69% white, 71% black, 67% Hispanic took that viewpoint. Are we more or less divided since Ferguson? We just went through a presidential election that deals with that. Sorry, I went through. So in 2017, is the divide greater? Sir, they talked about we don't do a really good job in the community. Does that gap keep growing with the community that we serve? And so how do we close that gap? So here's one general thing. Look, warm and fuzzy is not how people describe me. For those of you that don't know, I see a few of my former students in the room. I'm not Mr. Warm and Fuzzy. However, is community outreach, is that pretty important? If we have a shooting situation, if we have a law enforcement shooting situation, and the very first time you're meeting people in your community, your leader, your community leaders, your religious leaders, your chaplains, your faith-based people, if you're meeting them for the very first time in that scenario, it's already too late. It is already too late. Building relationships. Think of the relationships that you have. Who's married in the room? Sir? How long did it take before you proposed? 17 years, man. She wore me down. 2 years. It wasn't, hey, how you doing? Will you marry me? It took what? A long time. Did you live with her beforehand? So you had full disclosure as to what was going to happen.
You still did it?
Remember, we're on tape. Over, honey. Right? Same thing with regards to the community that you serve. Relationships take time to develop. Trust takes time to develop. With regards to New Jersey, we got a whole bunch of people packed in this very little state. People of different cultures, of different races. We speak different things, believe different things, look different. It's okay, looking different is part of how we tell each other apart. No training, no matter what we do. I can give you a 70-hour training in cultural diversity, and I still wouldn't hit every single ethnic group here in New Jersey. That's how the... But, how do we bridge the gap? Start communicating. Put it another way. Ask people of a different culture, race, ethnicity about their culture, race, ethnicity. And here's something else. I don't know. Listen. When's the last time you actually listened to someone? Someone who has an opposing viewpoint of you. Because usually it's point counterpoint, right? I listen to this person, I'm listening to them talk, and look, I've done 150 jury trials over my career. I'm all about cross. I'm ready to cross-examine. I'm on my counterpoint. You say this, I say that. You say this, I say that. You do this, I do that. As opposed to just listening. Sometimes we gotta be quiet and listen. The general public, what do they get their impression from? Social media has been talked about. How Hollywood perceives or gives the perception of us. Fictionalized television from media is how individuals may perceive us. The community you serve, what's our perception of them? There are different behaviors done that are certain religious or ethnic communities that the public may view as suspicious based upon stereotypes, misinformation, who's getting a call. You are. To respond to that situation, to respond to a person in the middle of a bus stop on a rug, praying, chanting, suspicious person. Wearing a turban, suspicious person. These behaviors include praying on the floor in public, chanting, wearing flowing, baggy clothing, even if it's worn based upon their religion. Challenges for law enforcement. It's incumbent upon police officers to understand what suspicious behavior and what a person is merely practicing their religion, their ethnic practices. And here's the problem that we have with law enforcement as well. Sometimes people hijack a religion. Sometimes people hijack what we consider to be ethnic customs for an illegal activity. And for my instructors in the room, we give you several different sites with individuals that have done so. So we always got to be aware that OODA loop's always kicking in. Again, as law enforcement, we are always suspicious of individuals until we can ascertain whether or not someone is actually demonstrating their religious faith or ethnic practices, or whether they're hijacking a religion for an illegal means. Some people you may meet in the line of duty will have tainted image of you based upon bad cultural tensions, previous bad interactions with police. For example, we're going to talk about what's driving perception in the Latin American community. It's fear. It's fear. It's fear that if they're not going to get deported, a family member may. And so guess what? They're not even going to call you in the first place if they're a victim of a crime. Fear is driving perception. Some people you meet will taint your views of the general public. It's important not to let your view change or how you think or treat people. Again, literally hitting the reset button with every police interaction. It's important to be aware of any communities that you're regularly dealing with. Attempt to learn some of their languages and customs. May allow you to understand, relate to their customs and idea, and have general understanding as well. Get to know the community leaders that we talked about. They'll be your contact point, enable you to earn the community's trust. Where do you have common ground? When in doubt, ask for assistance of another officer more familiar with the culture. Different words have different meanings depending on the culture that you are actually communicating with and the member of that culture. Community outreach, for my chiefs in the room, for my captains, lieutenants in the room, extremely important. Town hall meetings, social media, crime control, newsletters, community police programs, crime statistics, crime stats, citizen academies, police department functions, neighborhood watch, volunteerism, substations, bike, foot patrols, community resource officers, chaplaincy program, all parts of community outreach. Interfaith councils, again, may be able to bridge the gap between the community you serve and law enforcement, where you bring in individuals from religious leaders in the community that you serve for meetings. Help identify needs, deficiencies, concerns. Help arrive at solutions. Information sharing, security strategy as well are all important functions. What does law enforcement need from the community? So, we're teaching all 35,000 cops this in 2018. We're also going out to the community, talking to community leaders. And what are we telling them? What do we need from them? Compliance. When a law enforcement officer gives you an instruction, Even if you believe, for whatever reason, that that instruction is wrong, that that instruction is not based upon a matter of law, comply. How do we settle this? We settle it afterwards. People will get lawyers, there will be lawsuits, but that's how we deal with that in the legal system. On the street is not the time to be litigating this matter. There must be compliance. Otherwise, the citizen may be charged with a crime or disorderly persons offense under the law itself. Look, police work is complex. It's stressful. In use of force situations, we're talking about extremely stressful situation. 1 second, 2 seconds can change a life. You're the perpetrator. You got to make an instantaneous decision in that process. Again, we stress compliance with the community and the community that we serve. Diversity, what does diversity equal? Differences plus similarities. Differences focuses on how we see across cultures. We're always concerned about the threat of others. Here's the problem when we talk about threat of others from a law enforcement perspective. We talk about simply a threat of others, someone who looks different from us. We may have a heightened awareness when dealing with them in an enforcement action, and then when we see someone who looks exactly like us, we actually may lower our guard. That's implicit bias, ladies and gentlemen. And when I lower my guard, what happens? I may let that person who looks exactly like me do things that go against my training. Like, for example, at Top Gun, we have, I'm drawing a blank on his name, I apologize, the gentleman who was shot from Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office. He tells his story. And he tells how the fact that he went through law enforcement, how law enforcement changed his life, and that his best friend, his mentor, was killed. He talks about the fact that when his mentor was killed, his mentor was arriving on scene. He saw someone he know was a bouncer. The call was a burglary in progress. The guy had a backpack. He sees the person who he knows, and he says to him, "What's going on?" He asks some questions. This is a guy that he knows. The guy starts to get a little squirrely, but he says, he actually lets him put down the bag. He lets the guy open his backpack, and in the backpack is a gun, takes the gun and shoots him. He knew the person. Let his guard down. He was shot and killed. Same concepts when we have people that look exactly like us. Similarities. The myth of sameness. The person looks like me. That same guy, same idea. I can lower my guard. Dangerous for us. Dangerous for you. Diversity focuses on a more in-depth understanding of culture. Not just across cultures, but within the culture, leading to a deeper, richer understanding of the experience. This whole concept of social justice, what is it? This is the best slide I saw with regards to social justice. All right, so we got people, they want to see the track, or they want to see the soccer meet. Equality is we give all of them a box. Everyone, the same box. How about the person in the wheelchair? How are they doing watching the soccer meet? Not good. Equity is what? We give the person in the wheelchair a ramp to get above. When we talk about social concept, we talk about social justice and equality, we talk about equity versus equality. We need to understand these general concepts. Barriers to social justice, lack of understanding among the communities as to what you do. By the same token, lack of understanding of the community that you serve. The history of policing and policies. Lack of opportunities for police and communities to interact in a positive, mutually satisfying way are all barriers. Structural barriers, such as racial disparities in the juvenile justice system, criminal justice system, lack of trust and positive relationships are all barriers to social justice. You've all been through the academy. Whenever you went to the academy, I see a few of you with graying hair, so you went a while ago. They went through culture identity, definition of race, definition of culture and ethnicity. We're not going to reinforce, but actually build upon those general concepts that we teach at the academy. What we need to know: definitions of race, culture, ethnicity, culture identities, current New Jersey demographics, and diversity between the groups itself, within groups. Acculturation, immigration status. New Jersey has a number of individuals who have immigrated to the United States. Common assumptions and biases impact the current policy and the political climate, or how the community perceives law enforcement. Self-examination of social identities, power and privilege, and what it may mean to a person to whom you are interacting. Culture. Okay, you've been through this definition, so this is where I go into my disclaimer voice. Culture is a set of values, attitudes, or traditions that exist within groups, usually of a common religion, family, or other group. These ideas, behaviors, and traditions are passed on from one generation to the next and can adapt and change over time. Definition of culture differences, not limited to race, age, religion, gender, or sexual orientation or language. It can include learning disabilities, financial status, health issues, troubled or abusive pasts. Definition of race, socially constructed system of classifying individuals according to phenotypical characteristics that are genetically determined, not always consistent. Ethnicity, a sizable group of people with common sharing a distinctive racial, national, religious, linguistic, or cultural heritage. What's the first three letters of assume? That's what you become when you assume. It's something that we talk about at the academy. It's something that I tell my son every single day. When you see someone, do you make certain assumptions? For example, ma'am, what's your ethnic background? Puerto Rican. Okay. How many people don't believe you're Puerto Rican but believe you're a black female? A lot. Is that a misperception? Misperception. What they do, assume. What do you become when you assume? Don't assume that an apparent visible identity or accurate a person's primary identity. When you're talking with someone, don't assume. There's a lot of things packed in there. People may have hidden minority statuses, sexual orientation, ability status, religion. For example, how many people are Jewish in the room? If I were to say Jewish faith, sir, what ethnicity do you think? Most people, if you say the Jewish faith, you're going to perceive white. Actually, the Jewish faith we're going to see is all different cultures. Meet the Jewish faith, our Jewish faith people. So, sexual orientations, ability, status, religion. Don't assume you know. Never assume that a misunderstanding is not a big deal either. In certain cultures, it's a huge deal. I like this. This is from the New Yorker. Quick, remind me. Are they handshakers, huggers, or single kissers, or kissers on both cheeks? I can't remember. What's cultural competence? Cultural competence refers to an ability to interact effectively with people of different cultures, social and economic backgrounds, particularly in the context of government agencies, or people or employees who work with different cultures or ethnic backgrounds as well. In order to have cultural competence, what do we need to understand? First of all, what's my perspective? Awareness of my own cultural view, attitudes towards cultural differences, knowledge of different cultural practices, and then developing some cross-cultural skills. It's complex. People with multiple cultural identities. Understanding cultural identities is context-specific. For example, gender self-awareness may be heightened for female officers that are policing in a male-dominated society. Problems. How about the community that you serve? A patriarchal society. You're dealing with a person of a Muslim background, and you as a female given instruction. They may not even want to talk to you. Or how about this, my males, responding to a situation where it's a Muslim household, and a female answers the door. She may refuse to talk to you without a male even being present. Culture. So again, unique challenges. Unique challenges. Current demographics in New Jersey. 68% white, 19.7% Hispanic or Latino, 13% black, 8% Asians. 18 and 13-year-olds make up 50.73% of people of color. 18 and 13-year-olds make up 21% of the entire New Jersey, 21% of the New Jersey population. 22% of New Jersey's population is foreign-born. A higher portion only in California and New York. Only 13% of U.S. residents are born abroad. Estimated number of undocumented immigrants in New Jersey, 498,888, which constitutes 6% of New Jersey's population. What challenges or what actually changes or influences your perception of a person of a different culture, gender, race, ethnicity, sexual preference, orientation, or identity? A whole heck of a lot. Now, we're equal opportunity, so we went old school, new school. Survey says old school, new school. Again, equal opportunity. Flyers lost again last night, is that yeah. All right, anyway. Many things, I feel I use two goals, you know. Okay. Geographic region. Many things are going to affect your perception. Geographic region, heritage, ethnic group, race, age, generation, gender, sexual orientation, intelligence, education, special needs, mental, physical abilities, values, politics, tradition, religion, nationalities, income, economic status or class, profession, language, family, citizen status. Hey, do you see two candlesticks or two people looking at each other? Depends on your perception. Political views, gender, social class, immigration status, race, religion, religious viewpoints and practices. Two people see the same thing, see the same thing, but see two different things. Is it 4 or 3? Look at it long enough, you may have two different answers. Perception of justice, attitudes towards law enforcement, language, generation, age, historical experiences, all is the petri dish that makes up perception. Where you and I may see the same exact film and come up to two different conclusions. So what's your cultural lens? When were your grandparents or recent ancestors born? How was their adaptation to the United States? What messages have you received about growing up in your culture then, now? Anyone ever used the phrase, those people? Come on, let's be honest. It's not us, it's those people. Hey, what are those? Who are those? Those people. How do you perceive those or others? How does that affect your bias or interactions with those people who you classify as those? Are we a melting pot? Are we a salad bowl? Are we a mosaic? All of these have been used to describe the United States. And in your packets is a description of articles that deal specifically with these theories. Now, I'm not teaching a bunch of academics, I'm teaching cops. So, put this in here. If you want to delve more into this, have at it. I give you all the literature. With your permission, I'm going to move on. Move on? Move on. Because let's talk about conscious bias. What's conscious bias? Look, we all have conscious biases. We make decisions about what's safe, what is not safe, what's appropriate, what is not appropriate, based upon conscious biases. Here's something that's going to shock you. Conscious bias does have a role in law enforcement. It does. It's based on all the training that we do as to threat indicators to you. All develop a conscious bias as to whether or not danger exists. It has a role. The problem is when conscious bias is not based upon threat indicators, it's rather based upon the race of someone, ethnicity of someone, perceived sexual orientation of someone, religion of someone. We all make decisions every day as to what's safe or not. We spend a whole bunch of training time training you about potential threats, about always thinking, scanning, looking at someone to make a determination, are there threat indicators? Joseph Ledoux described this as the danger detector. The fight or flight syndrome determines whether or not something is safe before we can make a consciously determination as to what we're going to do. When an object, animal, or person is assessed to be dangerous, flight or fight kicks in. Fear response occurs. On a conscious level, we may correct a mistake with our danger detector when we notice it. All of the training that we train you on throughout whatever academy you went to dealt specifically with not relying on emotion, but relying upon what you see, processing it, and then using the appropriate force necessary to defend yourself. Not relying on that emotional gut instinct. That's what we deal with. That all comes with conscious bias. So it does have a role. With regards to being convinced, with regards to decisions are rational, but in reality most decisions are made emotionally when we collect or generate facts to justify them, especially when we talk about a use of force situation. It's the most emotional situation we can deal with in law enforcement. From a survival standpoint, it's not a negative trait, it's a necessary one, a conscious bias. We've all heard the axiom, it's better to be safe than sorry. For example, you duck your head when you believe something's about to hit you, hopefully. Some people may like it. That one commercial, you know, stick your head. Ooh, oh, thank you, let me hit my head again. So normally, conscious bias. When we see something, looks dangerous, feel dangerous, we've already launched subconsciously before we can even start thinking. All of your training deals with that level. Sense of comfort or discomfort has been engaged. When we talk about conscious bias in police work, we talk specifically about threats, threat indicators, because you're trained. Scan the whole person, watch the hands, scan the waist, check the surrounding areas, check the demeanor. Are there indicators of escalation that's happening? You see any bulges, heavy or weighted objects in pockets? Using cover potentially, distance, if they're not complying with orders. If there are threat indicators, elbow rise, hands in the pockets, suspects, conduct is escalating. All threat indicators for you in law enforcement. The OODA loop, something that we continue to do with or without thinking. When you walk, drive, interact, or simply sit passively, you're always observing, and you cops are always observing. That's part of your training. Anticipating a threat before it presents itself reduces the amount of time you need to react. Because as law enforcement, you are always reacting to the threat. Defendant knows what's going to happen. You don't. The idea of the OODA loop is to make your OODA loop faster so you can in fact gain a tactical advantage. Action trumps reaction. These are all concepts that you've been trained. Again, focuses on conscious bias. Here's where we cross the line. When that conscious bias is based upon a stereotype, when that conscious bias is based solely upon your race, ethnicity, size, we've gone over the top. When it's based upon a stereotype, we've been done an illegal act. It's called racial profiling. In 2006 bulletin, the FBI detailed the threat of white nationalists, KKK, infiltrating police departments in order to disrupt investigations by fellow member and to recruit other supremacists. Implicit bias. What about implicit bias? Implicit biases are defined as attitudes or stereotypes that can influence our beliefs, actions, or decisions, even though they're not consciously aware of them and don't express those beliefs verbally to ourselves or others. Implicit bias refers to attitudes or stereotypes or actions that are done on an unconscious level. These biases encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments, activated involuntarily, without the individual's awareness or control. See the same person dressed differently, different reaction to that person. That's your implicit bias kicking in. That's your implicit bias kicking in. All right. For those who've been to the training, don't shout out. For those who haven't, who said this? There's nothing more painful to me than to walk down the street, to hear footsteps, start thinking about a robbery, look around, and see someone white and feel relieved. Anyone ever have this experience? Who said it? Anybody know? The answer may shock you. Reverend Jesse Jackson. And by the way, with regards to this training, this is the toughest training I've ever put on. Every single slide is sourced, resourced, and sourced again. This is triple-sided. This is triple-sided. Implicit bias. Understanding that implicit bias. Implicit bias. Implicit associations we harbor in our subconscious cause us to have feelings and attitudes about people based upon characteristics, race, ethnicity, age, and appearance. These associations develop over the course of a lifetime, beginning at an early age and through exposure and direct or indirect messages. In addition to early life experiences, news media also has a role in implicit bias. The symbolic assailant. What is the symbolic assailant? Sociologist Jerome Skolnick wrote that because police work is under constant threat of violence, we may have what's called the symbolic assailants. This idea is based upon past experiences of what a criminal looks like, based upon our policing as part of our police role. Here's the problem. When that symbolic assailants that we have is actually based upon a stereotype. Use of stereotypes in law enforcement is really ineffective and illegal called racial profiling. Policing on stereotypes is improper. When we police on stereotypes, what occurs? We deal with the citizen of that race, ethnicity, sexual or perceived sexual orientation more harshly. If we're doing an interaction, we presume they commit a crime. We find their information less credible. We treat the citizen without respect. Unintentionally or intentionally, we may also escalate the situation in that process. So again, where do we cross the line? Bias or unconscious bias is when it's based upon a stereotype. And as we talked about, my female officers' perception of gender have unique challenges both within law enforcement and in certain communities that you serve. Language barriers. Anyone ever have this experience? Someone doesn't know the language that you know. Okay, what do you do, ma'am? Ms. Gutierrez, they don't understand your language. What are your options? Family member to translate. How about this? I talk louder! No, you need to come on with me, come on! What's happening? It ain't working, folks. All they got now is someone they don't understand screaming at them with a gun. Right, so our natural perception is, I'm going to talk louder. Thinking that that's going to help. It's not. Talking louder or slower is not going to help. Try to find some universal words. Hello, try to get a family member. If they have a law enforcement officer who understands the language, try to get a translator, someone in the community to, in fact, establish some communication. Because here's what's happening. You're frustrated. They're more frustrated. Because they actually may have been a victim of a crime, can't communicate. They may be having some sort of physical ailment, can't communicate it. Their kid may have been taken, can't communicate it. So as frustrated as you are, they are more frustrated in this interaction. If possible, use a translator. Hand gestures may be helpful. Stay calm. Try to enlist someone from the community who can speak both your language and theirs. At least get some translation going if you can. Social economic status. Does it have a role in perception? Yes. Based upon the social economic status of someone, whether they're poor, middle class, wealthy, all have a perception and build on someone's perception. Which means, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone through the longest portion of this presentation, part one, to set the floor. We're going to give you a 10-minute break. We're going to come back after the 10-minute break. We're going to talk about de-escalation techniques next.